Okay, I'm just going to check on another computer that it is live streaming. Cool. So we'll give people a few minutes to get ready. So, no, looking forward to your presentation, Eric. It's one of these topics that those in the know about it, but the vast majority of people in the industry, even those that talk about OTP and the rest, are not aware of it. So I think it's important that we get the message out there and understand how beautiful we could make the world with respect to authentication.
Cool. Thanks for the opportunity.
Hey, no problem. Because my sort of introduction to it sort of came when Twilio bought Boku, because I was like, what's it buying Boku for? You know, because I just had Boku in the category of, you know, basically mobile payments. You know, and we all know the story around that. And then it was like, you know, as I started doing digging, it was like, oh, it had moved into that. I didn't realize that. It wasn't something, I guess, they published that much. So then and then of course, you know, once Twilio did the ingestion and then, you know, announced the, you know, the coverage, I was like, oh, so that's why it paid what it did for them.
But also what they bought the business unit of Boku, and that was also part of a previous acquisition from Boku.
Yeah. That's right. Well, yeah, I know. It's Russian doll syndrome, you know?
Yeah, it is.
Because I'm trying to remember, it was I can't remember the name of the company that it bought. But they were sort of, you know, similar to Prove and to Telesign with score ratings in getting access to carrier data. So what we'll do is we'll just wait a couple more minutes. And then, oh, great, Glenn's here. Just, yeah, because people come in through the call as well. And just to let everybody know, we are live streaming. So if you do drop off or have to go away, you can continue following on just youtube.com/TAD Summit. We have the content there. And of course, I'll be publishing it all, so you can view it offline as well. So I'm pleased to have Eric here. What I'll do is 2 minutes past. So this is going to be far shorter than yesterday. So I don't want anybody to be scared that they have to be here for hours on end, okay? So I would like to welcome Eric, who I've known since he founded Nexmo. And of course, he's been on many journeys since. And his latest journey is with tru.ID. And he's going to be talking about silent authentication, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So Eric, over to you, please.
So hello, everyone, and welcome. So a few months ago, actually, Alan reached out to me asking if I can do a presentation about silent authentication, since he was getting more and more questions about it. So here it is. It will be short, but hopefully you will have some interesting questions at the end. So about me, my name is Eric Nadalin. I've been a tech entrepreneur for 25 years, and I'm also a big API advocate. I started with carrier mobile billing with IPIN. Then I co-founded an Nexmo programmable communication API. And finally, mobile identity with tru.ID. Maybe I do like telecoms, or maybe not. So let's talk about silent authentication. The first thing about it is nobody knows about it, because everybody call it differently. So you can see silent authentication, silent network authentication, SIM-based authentication, silent verification, even number verify. But what it is, it's a position factor API. And I mean by that, it verify you are in a possession of the SIM card associated with a given phone number at the time of the request. And this is a live and synchronous real-time check. So now, how it works. The GSMA created a standard called Mobile Connect, which is an extension of OpenID Connect API. But it doesn't mean every telecom operator implements this standard, which is quite common in the telecom world. This is why tru.ID exists, to make the developer experience better without dealing with the underlying telecom mess. But if you integrate directly with a carrier or via an aggregator like us, the end user flow will look like this anyway. So first step, the device is asking the end user to enter his phone number and send it to his backend. And then the backend return a specific link associated with the targeted mobile operator. In step 2, this is a critical step where the link needs to be opened over a data cellular connection. This is a direct connection between the handset and the MNO. What happened on the carrier side is very specific, but at the end, the device should receive a code or an error. So very similar, if you remember the OpenID Connect flow, it's a kind of authorization code flow. Then finally, step 3, the received code will be redeemed in order to get the final result, which is a flag about the phone number enter in step 1, matching or not the phone number associated with the data cellular connection. And that's it. It's very simple. 3 step, usually take a couple of seconds, and it's frictionless. So the good part of it is it looks great to have finally something new to replace SMS for security use case, offering a more secure and frictionless experience to the end user. However, there is a bad aspect, at least for now. Coverage. As now only 60, maybe 70 mobile operators are currently offering silent authentication API. And for the one offering it, maybe not all the MVNO using the network are enabled, which is not great. Wi-Fi. So it only works over data cellular connectivity. So it means a mobile app device. The problem of that, this is not possible to force the data connection when using the mobile web. So then the end user will have to manually turn off the Wi-Fi in order to get access to the data connectivity. Finally, the pricing, there is an internal conflict of interest with SMS. If the carrier is pricing silent auth way above SMS, nobody will use it. If the price is below SMS, they will cannibalize the SMS business. So that's a challenge for the carrier, but also for the customer. But there is more. There is a lot of ugliness in that. As mentioned in the flow, what happened in the carrier side in step 2 is specific to each carrier implementation. However, a lot of them are still using header enrichment over HTTP to identify the subscriber. Using an HTTP request might be a red flag for a lot of you guys. But carrier can do header enrichment properly by injecting a token in the request, and this token should be redeemed against another carrier API in order to match the token with a phone number. But please don't inject an MSISD in plain text. I'm just saying that because I've seen it somewhere. I won't share any name, but it's happened. And then the other ugly point is regarding customer onboarding, where most carriers have a very stringent customer approval. I believe this is a side effect of other identity API, usually used in a KYC, know your customer use case, where there is data about the subscriber being exchanged. But it shouldn't be applicable to the silent authentication use case, where there is no data sharing. We send the phone number, the mobile operator return a yes or no. And the funny thing, they don't do the same onboarding when sending SMS to FA, which is way worse in terms of privacy and what you can do with SMS than silent authentication. So that's something that hopefully that will change in the near future. And finally, to conclude, there is a very patchy coverage right now. So it feels like doing SMS in early 2000. I believe that regulators should protect mobile subscriber by banning SMS for security use case, like they do in some country. There is they limit usage of SMS for certain type of scenario, like in the US with NIST requirement, or in India with device banding. Device banding is required in order to perform financial transaction. So it looks like the regulation is moving in certain place, but right now nothing in Europe about that. But also we shouldn't wait for the regulator to fix everything. I believe MNO could do something now, and maybe force their brand and the apps to switch to silent authentication to improve security and privacy for their own subscriber instead of keep using SMS to FA. So if you want to try, feel free to visit us. You can reach out to me directly if you have questions, and I'm also happy to answer a question now.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Eric. That was really good. Excellent. Short and sweet summary on the state of play. So I've got several questions, but I will open it up to the audience first. If anybody on the call would like to ask a question, please do.
Hi, Alan. Nash.
Go for it.
Yeah, I have a question to Eric. How similar or different it is from Kamara's, for example, number?
Sorry, you were breaking up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is Jignash from Skyfox Networks.
Okay.
I would try to ask how similar or different it is from Kamara's number verify API, what you just described.
I mean, it's Kamara. It looks like it's just a new initiative around the same topic, and try to solve also some limitation of the current. The way Mobile Connect has evolved. I think when they started to build more Mobile Connect, at least the spec, we were way more ambitious, but maybe too ambitious. There was too many things in it. And especially there is something about the discovery service that actually nobody implements. So basically, like people like us, tru.ID, we are the discovery service because a carrier cannot do that. So in Kamara, there is some interesting thing about, because unlike SMS today, I can connect to Vodafone UK and ask them to deliver an SMS for O2 UK or AT&T. They can do that for me. With silent authentication, you need to directly connect to the final carrier. You cannot ask somebody else to do it for you. So I think Camara tried to solve that problem, but I think even today, when we see the number of mobile operators implementing silent auth, it's a long way. So I think it's great that people are thinking about improving things, but I believe that coverage is probably the most important thing right now. I understand that there is other way to authenticate. Well, I mean, behind the scene, the mobile operator could use different subsystem they currently have. So that's why some people today still do header enrichment, but we see some carrier doing some reusing their kind of intelligent network, so they have access to the IP and the MSISDN, so we can do a match at this level. There is a lot of topic about using the entitlement server used for eSIM validation. So that could be also a way to do authentication. So, I mean, again, there is the mobile connect, the Camara API, which is more the front end, what people consume. But I think there is still the way it's done could be also improved today. And there is a lot of room there.
I have a following question, but in either case, you need to have something as identity, which is MSISDN or a name for operator to respond with yes or no.
Yeah, you need to send, I mean, there is some API that is not really very popular, where it's kind of an improved version of header enrichment. So at the beginning, like if you roll back 20 years ago in mobile payment, what I'm still using, I'm pretty sure it's still used in mobile payment, the carrier inject something as a header. So, and you could do mobile connect in the same way. It's just a different scope you need to provide, like sharing. So share something. I don't remember by heart, but basically when you trigger this request, you will get back the MSISDN from the carrier. You don't need to send it. I think it could be interesting for some use case, but so far, I probably have seen 4 or 5 mobile operators supporting this. So I think, yes, you're right. There is a sharing thing. We need to send something. Right now, we need to set something like the MSISDN, which is the most common. And I think it's probably less sensitive than the name.
Yeah.
But potentially, we could match. We match anything on the data session. As soon as you add data session, the data session is linked to a subscriber profile. We could do it based on your date of birth, if you want. It doesn't matter. But it's more common to use the MSISDN as a kind of unique identifier. It makes more sense, and it's quite common. Most of the app will use now. I mean, use a phone number as the key.
More or less public domain as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you for that question. Are there any other questions from the audience?
Yes.
If not, go for it, Karel.
So I had a question about the MVNO use case. You said so it's one of the issues. So how do you see that resolved? And a follow-up question on that is there a way also to use this authentication system to know which carrier is the user on? So for mobile apps, sometimes you want to know the operators, and right now it's true that most information you get the underlying operator. So I know the person is on T-Mobile. In fact, he's not on T-Mobile, because if I tell him, okay, you are on T-Mobile, this and that, he's like, well, no, I'm not on T-Mobile, I'm on Ting. Oh, I don't even know you're on Ting. So that's the follow-up question.
So the first one, I mean, again, the MVNO problem is more up to the main carrier. So it depends the deal they have with the MVNO. I believe I'm not an expert into that, but I believe there is a commercial underlying deal. So and also depending if it's like a full MVNO or not is quite different. So if the MVNO is a full virtual where they have no infrastructure and the main carrier have access to their subscriber database, so it should be there, and it's there in most of the time. It becomes more complex where it's not a full MVNO, then you need to ask the MVNO to implement something new. So you need to show them that there is maybe revenue there. So that's, I think, the current challenge. So, and it was the same problem long time ago when SMS started. Remember, the interconnect didn't exist, so it took a while. It took 10 years to get global reach. So hopefully it won't take 10 years here. And if mobile operators see revenue from that new channel, they will probably force or offer it to the MVNO as well. So, but it's not up to us. It's more the mobile operator decision. Your second question, well, I mean, technically in your app, you should be able to get the SIM operator from Android at least, and also from iOS, you have access to that information. So it will get you some very funky MCC MNC, and you will need to do some interesting mapping. I don't know where Android is getting their MCC MNC sometimes, but you can figure it out. So I think that's one answer to your question. So you can technically do it directly today through the app by using the iOS or Android SDK. And but today for us, we don't offer it, but we do IP routing. So because that's the IP who define everything. Because even if you have on dual SIM, for instance, if you're on dual SIM and have a dual SIM phone, I have a UK subscription, I have a French subscription. So if I'm in UK and I turn off my UK data and I use my French data, it will work as long as I put my French number. If I put my UK number, it will fail. So we use the IP address to route requests to the right carrier. Today, we don't offer an API, say, give me an IP address, I tell you the MCC, MNC. But there is some people, especially IP provider, who start doing that. It's not really accurate because, again, the MCC, MNC is a never finish mess. And I still don't understand why it's still a mess, why we are not fixing it, because it's not rocket science. So that's a problem. And the other problem is
just to answer on this question, because we tried to do the MCC MNC route at first. So the issue is that very often it's the database behind that is the antenna registration company. So you can get like telco.co LLC, which is in fact the owner of that MNC MCC for a company that was bought by another company that was bought by T-Mobile. So actually it's T-Mobile, but there is like 3 layers of things. So the MNC MCC is you don't have an accurate database that give you the final operator. It gives you like the owner of the network towers, which isn't simple.
And there is places where it's even more crazy. Like in India it's like because there is people buying actually antenna and stuff. It's really crazy. So, but it's a problem, and I think it's a problem in general in telecom. This thing is not standardized, and it's difficult. It creates some friction, and yeah. But related to that, IP addresses are very important, and we haven't seen many operators today able to share a very a range of IP address used for their mobile connectivity. There is a few where it's very clear, but most of them, they cannot do that because it has been multiple acquisition. They mix it with the broadband stuff, so you don't know. So that's the point. But I think it would be nice as well at some point, and maybe by moving really to IPv6 at some point, it would be good as well to do that, and just to have one range, like in the US. There is a couple of carriers, just like one IPv6 range. That's it, and it's simple. And I think it would be nice also for the industry to do that.
Thank you.
Is that good for you, Carol?
Yeah, indeed. I think those are the issue we're all facing.
Yeah, and basically what it shows is there's going to be need for aggregators for a long time to come. Yeah. Eric doesn't need to worry about not having business. Well, until he sold the company again. Any other questions from the audience? I'll ask one, Eric. As soon as you say coverage, yes, there's global coverage issue, but other is country coverage. Because as a developer, you've got operations, say India, you've used as an example. So, say I'm a developer, I build apps, I do, consulting with all the financial service institutions in India, and the regulator has said thou shalt not use OTP for any financial transactions. You must use silent authentication. Will that create, the situation where you have across a country a unified approach across the carriers, so that there is a common approach to authentication for at least financial transactions?
I mean, we see, when I say that the coverage is patchy, is because I'm looking at it from my previous background of kind of being a CPaaS player, where global reach was actually a key feature. Okay.
Yeah.
So people were going to us and not going directly to a carrier because we were able to provide that. So, but like you said, if you are a developer in UK today, in Germany, in France, in the US, in Canada, you have full coverage, at least in your country. So you can run some business, you can do something. Obviously, if you are TikTok, is a different story, or maybe WhatsApp to be less conflicting. So if you are a global player, it's a slightly different thing. So you will need to cherry pick where you want to probably improve the experience. So in India is an interesting place because today there is actually only two carriers available. There is Vodafone, there is Jio. Airtel has a service, but shut it down a few months ago. Temporarily, hopefully, they might come back. They say they might come back, so we don't know when. But there, again, the regulator is forcing people to not use SMS OTP, and they have a system called device binding. And this device binding is actually relying on SMS, but in a different way. It's a message originated. So the device is sending a text to a server. And sometimes you could reply with an empty, but it's not mandatory. But it's a slightly different way. So then it's not the only way to do device binding, but it's a very common way. The problem of that, it works well in India because there is 95% of Android penetration. You cannot do that on iOS. I mean, yes, you can send an emo, but it's horrible because it's not silent. You need to pop up the thing with some kind of gibberish code. It's like, And so it's very confusing. But again, because of the Android penetration, it works well. But Silent Auth could provide a way better option for actually both platforms. And that's basically a way to move forward. But we start seeing this kind of device binding concept popping up in many places. And
Gotcha.
And also it could be, I mean, it's probably another debate, but it's an interesting combination of device binding if you want to do a passkey on top or FIDO, because again, the missing thing of FIDO is the possession, is the ownership.
Yes.
Thing.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. It's almost, I mean, I sort of look at it as the vision is beautiful because as a customer, you don't have to do anything. It's just, you're holding the device, it's done for you. You don't have to remember the OTP or, I mean, let's face it, I have across my laptops a whole host of devices. When an SMS comes in, that OTP message, pops up in a number of, different sources. It's like, and the aggregator is going to need to be there because of the mess of implementation that will always exist because every carrier has special needs. And it's almost like there's, an aggregator can aggregate across the different aggregation methods. So, for this, this person or this customer is on this carrier, so we can use Silent. Unfortunately, this customer is on this carrier, so we can use flash call. I mean, there's a number of mechanisms you can use, or worse, it's on OTP. But because the type of transaction, the regulator isn't saying thou shalt use not use SMS, you can get away with it, and the aggregator can manage that complex mess that, let's face it, for the rest of this decade isn't going away anytime soon. But anyway, that's enough of my rant. Rui, I put you on silent because there was noise coming through. Did you have a question? No. Okay, you must have.
Sorry,
okay,
no question.
Sorry for it was just I muted you. I didn't want you to think I was just silencing you there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions from the audience?
I have a further question if we have a space.
Go for it. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So this further to silent authentication. Do you think location or network assisted location could help in terms of authorizing what user is asking to use or where he's asking from? Or do we have any insight on that?
Not really. I don't really see what you mean by network assisted location.
So while we use MNOs and operators to verify the authenticity of the user, can we also ask or at least verify where the user is belong to currently? And because network has an independent view of GPS as well as IP location based on the cell tower. And can that be used for authentication and authorization for further level of checks?
Maybe, but I will be more in favor of actually privacy. And I think we are oversharing sometimes stuff. So I think we should be cautious, or at least as an end user myself, I would love not to share anything, or at least if I have to share, you need to tell me why I have to share this information.
Some of these financial transaction apps do use location anyway.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
They use GPS. They use even minute granular location from the devices. The problem comes when.
But don't you think it's just trying to fix something that was broken? So we added a layer on top of a layer of top of a layer. So and we're adding shit on top of shit. That we do. That's what we invented 2FA. And after 2FA, now you have like a Microsoft Authenticator asking you, after receiving a TOTP, asking you to enter a code you see on the screen. So yeah, we can do that all day long. It doesn't make any sense. So I think some of the location information was used to maybe see fraudulent use case. But if you trust the first mean of authentication, you don't need to do that anymore. So I think we should probably look at the step back a little bit and say what is really important, and instead of just keeping adding stuff. So, but I mean, again, if the financial regulators say we need to capture the location when the transaction is done, okay, if it's a rule, it's fine. But maybe we should ask why we are asking that. Is it for fraud use case? And why we have a fraud use case if we trust the mean of authentication in the first place?
Yeah, Ignatius is right that location is used, but it'll be, again, the aggregator or the score provider will access a number of databases, a number of data sources to produce a risk score associated, for example, with that credit card transaction. So it could be, okay, Alan's home base is in New Jersey, while this transaction is taking place in a high fraud area like Florida, and that will result in a different risk score coming back. So there isn't, the location information is released, so there's no sharing necessarily with third parties. It's just the score provider is dipping into a number of sources to produce a risk. So your information is, in inverted commas, protected, but location is used, I should say, in determining a risk score. And of course, all the marketeers then put a big slab of AI on top. That means that their software is magic.
But if you add on top of that private relay and all these things, so then there is a lot of things that will blow up. So
correct, absolutely. Nothing, but that's why you have multiple databases you can dip into. And then I guess from me, I'm just interested in your perspective, Eric, on what do you think of camera?
I mean, actually, I don't know much. I look at the thing. I saw some interesting concept, but the problem, my concern with all these standards, at the end of the day, nobody follow it. So it's good.
Correct.
People sitting in a room talking about stuff, but the reality, I mean, I'm maybe a very pragmatic guy, and that's the reality. The reality that there is 1,500 cars on the planet, and nobody is doing the same thing. So
yeah.
So I mean, it's good. It's good to have standard, I think, but we should try to see, is there a way to speed up the thing? Can we do something faster? And there is there is probably some avenue for that. But yeah, I mean, I mean, again, I look at it briefly. I tried to join some calls, but yeah, I think it's good that people think about that problem.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's Eric. Any other questions from the audience? If not, thank you for this great, short and sweet summary on silent authentication. And then as this discussion opened up, boy, this whole network authentication or network assisted authentication, it's a big can of worms. So again, thank you so much, guys. Please, take yourself off mute and thank Eric for a great presentation.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Hey, you got a thumbs up. Perfect. That was great. Thanks so much, Eric. And I'll get this out later today. Okay?
Okay, bye. Thank you.